So when we disagree, we have an ancient ritual where we take psychedelics and engage in mortal combat. Well, we'll probably use the marriage partner analogy a lot. And it's kind of like saying, how do you hold your marriage partner accountable? It's like, if you have to do that, then, you know, is it really a good partnership?
I agree. I mean,
if someone's fucking up, we'll let them know.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it is the old. We're an old married couple.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good question. Because for the longest time, Kevin is the eternal optimist and I am the eternal realist, I think.
Ooh.
Okay, some might say
but you were
pessimist.
very pessimistic way back.
Yeah,
You've definitely changed your ways.
Right. Well, I think that there's benefit in going like, this probably won't work. So like, either let's try really hard so that it does, or let's just not do it all together. I think Kevin's faster to say yes to like, let's try that, but then there's other times like when we wanted to go freemium and I wanted to push for it and Kevin was kind of skeptical about it. And I think he was ultimately right, but I don't know.
But
we have very different personalities.
Yeah, I mean, even we have 20 years difference between us. We especially, I mean, I think we've aligned more over the years.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially when we first met, we're opposites. But that works. The yin and yang thing, right? I mean, it really does work.
Alcohol. When I'll use the story of when we were looking at raising money, because I'd say that was probably the hardest decision we had in the last couple of years to make. So Kevin and I had a offer on the table from an investor, and we really had to sort of sit down and figure out, like, it was a fork in the road, and we had to decide which path to go down. And really, it was just kind of like old school pros and cons list.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Over drinks.
Yeah, it's always over drinks, it seems like. Well, I mean, we haven't had any disagreements there. We're very careful on who we select to work with us. But now we're at a point where we have people that are running some departments. So Kyle and I will discuss it, and then we'll pull in one of those department heads and have a chat with them, and we empower them to really work with whoever that is that we're having an issue with. But we really rarely have to even go down that path.
Kevin and I also have a pretty clear divide in what departments we oversee and which ones we don't. So typically if it's a product or marketing thing, then Kevin will say, hey, I think this, but ultimately he'll leave it to me to make the final call, and I do the same thing when it comes to the sales department or any other departments that Kevin runs. I might say, here's what I would do, and Kevin will agree or disagree. But I think it's very important for partners to leave clear divides in terms of what they're responsible for, so that when it comes down to those decisions, it's ultimately up to one person, and the other person just accepts it. We talk about it a lot.
We do talk about it a lot. We do a lot of bromances, but we haven't. Lately, we've been talking.
We've been
about
discussing double dates, I think, for 10 years.
Yeah.
I've actually churned through multiple partners that we didn't have double dates with, and
it's true.
Yeah.
Well, I've been the third wheel a few times.
Yeah.
But my wife's a nurse.
True.
She works a lot of shift work, so it's hard for her to. But we're gonna do it. We've been talking about it.
We've also been talking about recording an album together.
Yeah.
For 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not even one session has happened.
Though we have had some jams. At the
Yeah.
street party and stuff.
Yeah. So we actually have a pretty defined process for this. I mean, sometimes you just go off of gut instinct and kind of your, the vision that you have for your product. You've got to sort of stay with that. Obviously, user feedback is huge, talking to customers and putting it all together and figuring out, at at a macro level, what are people interested in, what's going to actually help grow the business. We've got a chart where we look at, well, there's two things. So the first thing is we look at a chart that is basically this way is how often are people going to use that feature, and this is how many people are going to use that feature. And if the feature that we're sort of debating and deciding on is like as far up and to the right as possible, like everybody is going to use this all of the time and be happy with it, then it's a clear decision. And then as things start to fall outside of that, where you go like, okay, there's only like 20% of the customer base will need this and they may use it all the time, that's where it sort of gets into gray areas. The other thing is what we call the ICE score. We didn't come up with that, but it's the ICE score stands for impact, confidence, and ease of deployment. So we actually have a scoring system where we look at, say, 5 features we're trying to figure out to work on next, and then say, what's the impact that it will have on our business? What's the how confident are we that it will have that? And then how easy is it to deploy?
Less is more in a lot of ways. We don't want to be a feature-bloated app, kind of follow along the 37 signals approach with Basecamp, and we always have that in the back of our minds as well.
I mean, ask yourself, am I really excited and passionate about solving this problem still?
That's a good point.
Logistically, am I out of money? Like, is there no path in terms of, there's no investors on board, the bank won't loan any money, family and friends won't loan money. I mean, definitely don't get into personal debt over it. If your business is failing and you are considering taking out like a personal loan, that's usually always a mistake, I think.
And if it's changing your personality and who you are, get out, because that's what happens. You may become angry, jaded, or it can be, the stress could be affecting your health, your loved ones. It's just not worth it. And you got to kind of look at those things too. You got to look within.
Well, people ask this a lot about Proposify, where for a long time it wasn't working, and we kind of kept going through. It was really about 17 months from when we launched our MVP to when we started hitting product market fit and scaling. And so a lot of times people ask, well, what kept us going through all that time? And it really was the fact that we had positive signs of traction. It wasn't that we had traction, but we had some indications. So we had even a handful of customers that we didn't know
5.
Somewhere in the world,
Yep.
5, 10 at different times, who were saying, either I love this or I want to love it, but I hate it, but they were using it and they were giving us feedback. And so knowing that somebody cared about what we were doing was a good indication that we shouldn't give up on this too quickly.
I mean, at that time, we were putting resumes out. We weren't hitting product market fit, and we knew we were probably going to keep it going, but we knew that our runway was really ending. And to Kyle's point, I mean, as well, we built something that we needed when we had an agency. We knew there was a need for it, and we were passionate about it. So back to your passion thing too. I mean, we still had the passion for it, and I just knew, in my gut, I just knew that this was going to happen. And I just said, we just got to keep going. We just got to keep going.
What we've learned since is that you really need to find your value metric. So what does somebody in your product use that as they use more and more of it, they'll get more value out of the product and thus be willing to pay for it. So the easy example would be an analytics product. The more, say, users or traffic coming to your website, the more data you consume, therefore the more you pay. And so they usually have tiered pricing based on that. So we did what we did for Proposify is we looked at what are people saying about how do they get more value out of the product. Sometimes it was features, and more often than not, people would say, oh, I've only got one proposal to write every 6 months, so I don't want to pay for the product, or I don't want to pay very much for it, whereas other people would say, I've got 100 proposals a month, and therefore I'm willing to pay more. Once we started pricing based on our value metric, we found that we were able to really scale our average revenue per user fairly quickly.
And going way back to the beginning too, I remember, we were thinking of really undervaluing what we were doing, because we didn't probably know the value, but I remember numbers being thrown out there, of like $5-10 a month. And I think, again, back to, we really listened to our customers, our potential customers. We did some user testing, and that was very, very beneficial at the beginning, especially.